All right. Hey, Facebook. I hope my mic is working. Let's see here. Whoever's the first one to join us here, let me know if my mic's working because it always makes me nervous. Something's not plugged in, all right. So, all right. Welcome y'all being here. For those of you watching the replay, hey, Evan, Thomas, thanks, guys. Larry, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me all right. I always worry about, good thumbs up. All right, good deal. All right. So, what we're going to be talking about today is based on a blog post that got released on Freddie this morning, and that's F-R-E-T-T-I-E. You can link that up over in the description of this video. And so we're going to be talking about some songwriting and songwriter artist advice from a buddy named Aaron Goodvin. He's a rising artist on Warner Brothers Canada. He's have several hits over there already in his young career. I think he just won like Songwriter of the Year over there for a song of his up at the CCMA Awards. That's the Canadian Country Music Awards. And recently he signed a U.S. record deal with Reviver Records. You probably know them from, they had Low Cash for a while. Not Low Money Stream, but they had the band Low Cash for a while, and they had some hits on them, like I Love My Life and some of that stuff. And they also had recently had a hit with David Lee Murphy called Everything's Gonna Be All Right, written with David Lee Murphy and Jimmy Yeary. So anyway, so Aaron's over there. He's working on his first record. All right. Hey, Sheila, and hey, Holly, Joseph, and Mike, and Avram. So Aaron stopped by, and he was a recent guest on Know the Row with Freddie. And so we try to do these once every couple months, sometimes more often, sometimes quarterly, but bring in a pro in some aspect of the music business and have them talk to us for a while. I do a little bit of an interview with them, and then we open it up to questions from the Freddie subscribers that are there. So we do like a video conference thing. My hat feels way funny. There we go. Better. All right. So anyway, so Aaron dropped by, and so we're going to talk about some of the advice that he shared. And then also, with a little bit of time we might have left, send me your questions. So hit me up in the comments if you have a question, and we can dive into some of those. Also, smash that share button. If this stuff is helpful, I would love for you guys to share it with your friends who are artists, who are songwriters, trying to make hay in both those fields. I would love for you to share that out. So feel free to share it away. I would love that. So songwriter groups, that kind of stuff, feel free. So hi, Holly and JT, Lance. All right, so here we go. First piece of advice I want to share, and then I'm going to just kind of jump off that and share my thoughts on that. All right, so one thing Aaron talked about was, as an artist, yeah, there's money to be made in recording your own songs that you are a writer on. But you have to remember that, you know, how a great career song can be financially beneficial no matter who writes it. For example, a career song is going to increase your ticket prices. So you look at an artist like Lee Brice, who is a good writer, written hits for other people, writes his own stuff. He did not write I Drive Your Truck. And you can imagine what that did to his concert ticket sales, to his merch sales, and to what he charges to put on a show. It went up, right? From that, he didn't write I Drive Your Truck, but it is his career song. And you know that had a big effect on his career moving forward. So yeah, he could have made some money on publishing or as a writer on one more song on that record. But he was smart enough to go, I'm going to cut a great song and see what this does to my career. And it definitely just blew his career up. And I think of guys like George Strait, Tim McGraw, Garth Brooks, Kenny Chesney. So all those guys have written a little bit, at least. I mean, Garth definitely has written some of his hits. Chesney has written some of his hits. Strait's starting to write a little bit. But all those guys really built their careers and their biggest songs on songs that other people wrote. And they built careers on this. And I think it's wise to have that long view of it, to say, hey, best song wins, because I want to be able to still play shows 20 years from now. And my records may not be selling as much, but if I cut classic songs that are amazing career songs, I'm going to have a career. George Strait, a legend. Tim McGraw, legend. I mean, Garth, some of the biggest stuff, Friends in Low Places, he didn't write. He didn't write The Dance. Those did all right for him. They gave him that career, really. They were huge. Kenny Chesney didn't write some of his biggest hits like There Goes My Life and No Shirt, No Shoes, No Problem, and When the Sun Goes Down, and you know, most of his stuff, Come Over, he didn't write. He wrote some of his stuff. He's a good writer. he knows when to go outside and find a song that's going to level up his career and get him in front of more fans and really serve the fans that he likes. Larry says my hat's too new. Thank you, Larry. I just haven't worked it in yet. All right. Adam, Dale, Mark, thanks for joining us. If y'all have any questions you want me to address, go ahead and hit me up in the comments, and we'll see what we can do to get to those after I share this little bit. If you're just joining us, this is some advice from Aaron Goodvin. He's a singer-songwriter having hits up in Canada, working on his first U.S. record with Reviver Records. He was a guest on Know the Row, and I got to ask him some questions. Here's some of what he had to say. And if you want to read more of what he had to say, you can link on over to the in the description there. There's a link to the blog post that posted on Freddie today. So for a little bit more information. Another thing Aaron said is new co-writers. I asked him, hey man, how do new co-writers get on your radar? How do you learn about these new people that you're writing with? You know, he's living in Nashville. He's on the road a bunch these days with the artist thing that's doing well. How do you find new co-writers? Because this is something that you probably wanted to know, right? He's got a record deal. He's having songs on the radio in Canada, and he's going to have songs on the radio in the U.S. How do I get in the room with that guy if I don't already know him, right? How can I be one of those new co-writers? Thought it was a relevant question. Ask him, and this is what he said. He said new co-writers get on his radar through his publishing company, which he signed over Reviver as a writer, through management, or through label hookups. So those are kind of the filters that may bring him people and say, hey, you know, his song plugger may say, hey, there's this person I really like. I think you should write with them. And Aaron's open to that. Or his management may be aware of somebody, or, you know, the label side, which is also a Reviver, but the label side, people may come in through. They're going, hey, they've been pitching the songs. They're really cool. Maybe you should write with them or something. Another thing is, actually, Aaron's wife works in the industry, Victoria. And so she'll recommend people that she thinks are cool. So I think, you know, the kind of two sides of that, you have industry relationships and you also have personal relationships. So it's something you want to think about. If you want to get in the room with rising artists, with established artists, how do I get to those people? And usually, you know, they have to work through filters, right? You're not going to DM an artist and just be like, hey, look, Brian, I dig your stuff. Here's a link to my YouTube page. What do you think? We should write sometime. I'll make you money, right? It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Artists go through filters, just like publishers. A lot of times we use filters to try and let the good stuff through while keeping most of the stuff that's not ready out, right? Because most of the stuff is just not ready to help them make a living, and everyone's trying to make a living, feed their families. And hi, Rob, right back to you. And Eric, Siv in Sweden. Well, thank you for joining us. All right, it's midnight in Bangkok. Hey, Bobby, thanks for joining us at midnight. And so I think that's really important to remember that, okay, a DM is probably not going to get you on their radar. So how do I get on the radar of the filters of publishing companies, of management, of labels, of that sort of thing, where hopefully I can kind of be filtered through and end up in a room with someone like Aaron? I know how I personally got in the room with Aaron is when I was, you know, I'd moved to Nashville a couple of years before, I guess, and through just connections in the business and people I knew, I started doing some gopher work. So this was before I was writing as a pro, and I was still like part-time jobbing it, some different stuff. But my friend Laura McLeod, hi Laura, and she, I knew her from working at Blue Water Music. I was just like a desk jockey there, putting in royalty and other admin data. But anyway, she introduced me to this guy named Miles Wilkinson, who's a Canadian guy, and he was an engineer and did some production and stuff. And anyway, so I started doing some like gopher work for him, just, you know, per hour, just doing stuff he needed done, right? Don't worry, I wouldn't push any buttons in the studio. He knew better than have me do that, but just other types, errands and whatever, make a little bit of money. Anyway, he ended up recommending that I work with this guy named Aaron, this 18-year-old kid at the time that's coming down from Canada and making trips. He's a hard worker, you know, he's got a bright future, that sort of stuff. And so Aaron and I end up getting together a little bit, writing a little bit based on that recommendation. And, you know, here, however many years later, you know, has 2 record deals and songs on the radio. And I'm like, oh, we've known each other for, I don't know, a decade now or something. They're just through random stuff. You get plugged in, you start meeting people, you get recommendations, that sort of thing. I know my first pro writers that I started writing with, again, when I first moved to Nashville, I was writing at Blue Water, or not writing at Blue Water Music. I was just working there, again, doing data entry, putting in Jim Lauderdale's and Kim Ritchie and Chris Knight's royalty money, right? And some of Casey Beathard's and some other folks. But I was working there just in the office part-time. I was waiting tables at Cracker Barrel the other part of the time. And eventually, you know, the owner of Blue Water, Brownlee Ferguson, he said, hey, don't hit up any of my writers, okay? But I told them I was a writer. They knew, because otherwise they were wondering why a guy with an MBA is applying for a part-time job doing data entry, right? So I was up front with them, hey, I'm a songwriter. And that's why I moved to Nashville. They're like, all right, you can have this, you know, I got the gig, but the rule was don't bug my writers. Don't hit them up for co-writes. You go through me for any of that. So I was around enough, showed that I was responsible and did a good job. And then, you know, Brownlee started hearing some of my stuff and, you know, started getting that permission. And then through that relationship, I think my first pro co-write was with Charlie Steffel. He wrote The Fool for Leanne Womack. He also co-wrote Every Time That It Rains with Garth on that first record. Heck of a nice guy, great writer. And so Charlie and I became friends. So it was, you know, through recommendations and stuff. I didn't have anything going on at that point. Okay, what else we got here? I want to share another one here, and then we'll get to your question. So if you have a question, hit me up in the comments. Again, if this stuff is helpful, if you think your friends are like this, share this video. I want to reach more people with this information, and hopefully it'll help more folks. So feel free to share. Caring means sharing, okay? All right, so this is another thing Aaron had to say is I asked him about the Nashville bubble. You know, you can get on the road every day and your friends are songwriters and publishers and you get very kind of insulated and you're trying to write songs for the radio and especially but he's a working musician as well. He's out there on the road with a record deal. So I asked him about how is it different getting out of that Nashville bubble where you're not just like, I'm going to the road every day, and I'm writing with other writers and I'm trying to just get songs on the radio. Aaron, you're actually in front of real country music fans, the people that we're writing these songs for. How has that changed your perspective? He said it's valuable because, you know, most people aren't musicians, right? They just want to go out and have a beer and sing along with your songs. Even if they don't know those songs, they still want to sing along. He talks about seeing people that he's like, hey, this is the first time you've heard this. I've never played it out before. And like the whole time people are mouthing the words like they're singing along. They've never heard the song. They're not really singing along, but they want to, right? It's something you want to do at a show. You want to hold up your drink, your Coke or your Fanta or your beer and sing along and have a good time. He said, so just writing simple songs, repeating simple words that people can sing along with by the end. He goes, that's, you know, and he talked about just how powerful that can be and how much fun people have with that. And as writers, you know, sometimes we can get in the mindset of, oh, I have to write this amazing, complex thing to kind of impress other songwriters. But it's important to remember that what we're doing for the listener. We're doing for the fan in the stands, right? We're not doing it just for ourselves and to impress our buddies. The end goal is to get stuff on the radio and to get it out to the people that are going to show up to a show, buy a ticket and a T-shirt, and have a good time singing along. He talked about, you know, the Alan Jackson song, Good Time, G double O double whatever, you know, G to the O to the O to the D to the T to the I to the M to the E, the good time, you know, just really simple, literally spelling it out for the listener. He goes, you know, it's not rocket science, but he goes, you play that 3 times in a row and people are still going to be singing along because they love being able to sing along at shows. So I thought that was an important thing to remember if you're a non-performing songwriter, to go, okay, I have to put myself in the mind of a listener. What does the listener want to hear? And you want to write it well because you are competing against the best writers in the world if you're trying to get on records. But you also have to remember that can kind of be your secret superpower is, well, an artist is going to like this because I put myself in the mind of the listener. A successful artist is thinking about what do listeners want to hear. And if I can think about that as a writer, that puts me on the same side of the equation as the artist, thinking about how do we please our listener and what do they want to hear, not impressing people at the Bluebird. Sometimes you can do both with the same song. But remember, if your goal is to get cuts, your goal is to think about, I want those listeners to be able to sing along. So, hey, Chad and Jay and Angie and Mary and Brett and Dave and Tim and Monty. All right, so let's move on to your questions for just a couple of minutes here. If you have something you want to ask me, I'm here. And let's just see if you got something. I think someone asked one a second ago. Oh, yeah. Deb. Hey, Deb, how do you get in front of publishers? It's not easy. Publishers often use filters too, because there are more songwriters trying to get to publishers with more songs than the publishers physically have time to listen to. It's just impossible, right? There are a whole lot more of us than there are of them, and we have a ton of songs. The thing is, most of the songs are not going to help the publisher solve their own problems. Publisher has a problem. So I got to get songs on records, and I got to get, songs on the radio. I got to get hits. Otherwise, I don't make money, and we got to turn off the lights, right? So how do we help them solve their problems? So they go through filters. Some of those filters might be a place like NSAI, that's Nashville Songwriters Association International. I'll just pop that in the comment here. That's they're a good organization, www.nashvillesongwriters.com. And they were, Bart and those folks over there were instrumental in getting, no pun intended, but they were instrumental in getting the Music Modernization Act passed. So they really fight for songwriters, but they may go to events like that. I have a Play for Publisher event that I do quarterly. We actually have another one coming up with Scott Sherrod of Rare Spark Media. So first time, I guess, announcing that one, but we have one coming up with Scott. He was a recent guest on Know the Row as well, but he publishes Victoria Banks, Walker Hayes, the successful artist, and some other folks. But he's going to come in, and this will be a chance for people to play some songs for Scott. If you want to find details about that, you can just download my free ebook, Think Like a Pro Songwriter. You can get that at giftfrombrent.com. That's also in the description of the video down at the bottom, giftfrombrent.com. You get a free video or a free ebook, and then you also get information about upcoming events, and Play for Publisher is one of them. So you have publisher events like that where they listen to songs from people they don't already know. But NSAI or Global Songwriters Connection act as kind of a filter sometimes for those. I know I act as a filter and try to bring just the best of the bunch. And we may have some people on here listening that have had songs on there. But so that's one way. Another way would be through your PRO. So in the U.S., we have 3 PROs, ASCAP, CSAC, BMI. And they are collection agencies. They collect monies from public performances, arena shows. Your local bar you might see an ASCAP or BMI or CSAC sticker because they have bands play. They pump music in. Restaurants should have those stickers too, and they pay a license and they collect all that stuff, and radio airplay and stuff. But anyway, they have writers reps, and as they get to know you as an unsigned writer, if they really, really love what you do, they can pick up the phone and help you make a connection with some publishers. Another way is to write with people that are signed, or write with people that do have some publisher connections. So climbing that co-writing ladder where your co-writers are getting more and more connected. So you might be writing with someone who's playing songs for Tim over at Parallel, and Tim's really digging that, your co-writer's songs, and you leverage that into a meeting as well. But man, he's really liked the last 3 of our songs. You think would be okay if I come in and play him some of my stuff? And someone like Tim may be more open to that, or any publisher may be more open to that because they're liking what you're doing. So you kind of get those 6 degrees of separation. You try to get it down to 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 degrees of separation. But it's really about filters. It's not super easy, but there are some of those events that are more open to, that act like a filter. So you're very welcome, Angie. I'm happy to share. Hey, John, let's see. If you live in another country, how do you get in front of publishers? Same thing. I mean, Sam Spears, who's part of the Songwriting Pro community, and he's been to at least one, maybe more, of the Play for Publisher events, and he lives in Scotland. He just stays up a little bit later and joins us on the video conference. And so he's gotten some face-to-face time with publishers. So that's something I know that I do for writers. It doesn't matter where you are. We have people come in from Canada or whatever, different time zones. And so that's one way I try to provide that for people. Larry says, and I'm always scared to say Larry's name before I read his question. Larry said, in your early days before you knew melody co-writers, how did you filter them to match your lyrics? I wasn't much filtering because I lived in Arkansas and I knew like one guy, and his name is Tim Meitzen. And there we go. That's his album right there that we did in the year 2000. It is triple plywood. We made our own little certification because we sold 300 records of this CD that we did in Arkansas, songs that we'd written. But man, he's a buddy from high school. I mean, I got to know him through church youth group. He's 3 years younger than me, and his sister's my age. And we started writing, and we were just into the same music. And he was my only co-writer for a good long while through college and stuff, until I got moved down to Little Rock and started meeting some other people. A buddy of mine, Kevin Mason, who's in Nashville, and we wrote not too awful long ago. So we stayed in contact. And so it was just kind of, those guys were all quality and great dudes. But at the beginning, you kind of take what you can get. And then as you get more and more, you start filtering. But those, like I said, Kevin's good. He and I still write together. Tim went on to law school, and so he's living back in our hometown as a public prosecutor, which is really scary because if you know Tim. So yeah, at the beginning, you just kind of, the people you can get in front of, because I don't write melody, and then you just try it. And some people, during college, I tried it a little bit with a couple people, but it didn't really work out. But you find a couple, and then you find more, and then eventually I moved to Nashville and found more you can shake a stick at. So let's see here. Dale asked if you could go out and buy a new acoustic today for songwriting, which would you buy? I'm lyricist. I don't play guitar enough. I got a guitar over there. The strings on it are older than most of my children, so I don't pick it up very much. So that's not my skill set. So I'm not the guy to answer that, Dale. Let's see. Okay, so Cheryl's asking, how do you go about picking up a song to record the career song? As you say an up-and-comer wants to record your song, would you let them, or are there avenues to follow? I guess, like, as a writer, as a pro writer, if somebody approached me about recording a song, there's no such thing as a bad cut. One thing you do worry about is, giving away your best songs to people that aren't going to be able to do anything with them, really. And so opinions differ on that. I mean, I remember hearing the story, about, I Drive Your Truck, Lee Brice, when they played that for him, Rusty Gaston over at This Music played it for him. And Lee was like, really? Are you really playing this for me? I can have this. Because, he'd had a couple of hits, but that's like a career huge song that, there's a pecking order. So even guys as successful and on a record label like Lee at the time, that were just climbing up, usually writers and publishers, they want to go to the very, very top, the people that are going to make the most money, have the most chance of having a hit, and then they start working their way down. It makes sense, right? Swing big and then kind of work your way back. So writers have to think about that stuff as well. If it's a song that's been around a while and it's a smaller, indie, I'm more open to it. I'm not going to chase that stuff down because it's just not worth my time for the money that you might make. So it just depends on the song. If it's been a while, and maybe it's not as current as what the radio is, but it works for this artist, hey man, I'm not going to turn down the money. So it just depends. If it's a brand new song I just got demoed, I want to run it through the big paces first. But it's a balancing act, There's no one answer to that, really. Let's see here. How does ASCAP know if they like your music? Are they reviewing each song you submit? No, Rob, they are not listening to your music, because when you register your song with ASCAP or BMI, I'm an ASCAP member. You don't include a sound recording. You just, the date of creation, co-writers, publishers, that stuff, you turn that stuff in. You don't even turn in the song. So for them to know they like your song, you would have to get a meeting with a member's rep, a writer's rep over there. So, my first meeting was with a guy named Mike Doyle. My buddy Tim and I were coming in from Arkansas, and this was like, I don't know, I guess it was the year 2000, because that's when we made that record. And we started calling, and eventually got a meeting with Mike. Said, hey, we're coming into town. Would love to, play a song for you. We're ASCAP members. So eventually, we got on the books with him before our trip. We sat down with him, played him a couple songs, got some feedback. Nothing happened because those songs weren't worth it. Years later, actually, Mike became my song player at Major Bob, which is funny how that works out. But he got a little nervous. I said, you're my first ASCAP meeting. And we played you a couple songs. He was like, what'd I say? I was like, it was all right. But, then later I had a meeting with a guy named Chad Green, and, he dug my stuff, and he picked up the phone and he called Mike Doyle over at Major Bob at the time. So this was a few years later. This was like 2000 or 90. Wait, what year was that? What year did I move it? Oh, it was like 2004 or something like that, when Chad picked up the phone. So a couple years later. So to try to get a meeting with someone. It's not easy. But APRA, is that APRA? I'm going to say that Australia, maybe, that Deb's a member of. Let's see. Hey, Alan, what is the most people you would co-write with on one song? Lance Rogers asking that. At 25, if they're all in the band, I mean, I think the most I've written with at one time has been 3 or 4 other people. It was kind of a band workshop. We had a band coming in when I was writing at Major Bob. And so it was like one writer and then a couple of members of the band, or 2 of our writers and 2 members of the band or something like that. I think so 4. I don't know if I've ever done a 5-way. I think I've done a 4-way. No jokes. And yeah, so I mean, I've had A Woman Scorned was cut by Lady Antebellum. And so I wrote with Hillary Scott and Casey Kessel and John Armstrong. So it was kind of thrown together, kind of last minute, co-write. But there were 4 of us on there, got cut. I wrote Last Night Last with Lady Antebellum, so Charles, Dave, and Hillary. And so there were four of us on there. And I think that's as big as I've gone. Then, of course, there's just some, 50-50 writes, 2-way writes. Because I'm not going to finish a song by myself because I'm not a melody person. So, it just depends on the situation. I mean, if all of Aerosmith wants to get in a room and write, all right, yeah, sure, And so it kind of depends on what the point of it would be. But yeah, it does cut down on what money you can make on it because it's got to get split that much more. But hey, 20% of something is a whole lot better than 100% of nothing, is the way I look at it. So it depends on how close we are to the target. If it's something that makes sense. Now, I wouldn't get in a room with a whole bunch of just other aspiring writers, like 8 other writers, to try and write a song, because even if the odds of you get cut are very slim, then even if you do, not that much money probably. But if it's people that are very connected, you want to get me in a room with Shane McAnally and Ashley Gorley and Luke Laird and Barry Dean and Hillary Lindsay and 20 names like that. Yeah, I'll jump in that room. All right, Deb asks, how do writers get paid? Is it percentage or cash payout? What should we know about this to make sure we don't get ripped off? So, in general, people like to say, hey, you sell any songs? No, we don't sell songs. Okay, Paul, APRA, yes, Australian. Told you I used to work at Blue Water, right, doing admin stuff. That's where I learned that. All right, because we had to send stuff to them. But so, Deb, how do they get paid? It's basically pure commission, right? It's royalties. Now, it's different if you have a publishing deal, but basically at the end of the day, it comes down to you get no money for somebody holding a song. You get no money for somebody recording a song. You get no money for somebody releasing a song. You start making money when that song generates income, meaning somebody buys it on iTunes. Somebody walks into Walmart and dusts off the shelves and finds a copy and buys it. It gets spun on radio and detected by one of the PROs, ASCAP, CSAC, BMI, or APRA, or it gets streamed enough to register and create a penny. So again, I mean, I had a Randy Travis cut that was on the shelf for 2 years. So it didn't make any income for anybody from the writer side or publisher side because there was no income being generated from that. It was recorded, but we had to wait for it to generate some money before it got passed along to us. So it's not a cash payout. That's just not how the legit business works. So if somebody's offering you just a cash payment, I think I heard that on Who Let the Dogs Out. Somebody like went over to Africa and I heard some band doing that or something. The guys that wrote it and just like paid them a ridiculously low amount of money compared to what that song made, bought the publishing and the writer share, and then went back and made like $1 bazillion off it. I don't know if that's true. It's stuff you hear. But yeah, we don't do that. We work basically off royalties, which is like commission. It's got to make a sale. Oh, New Zealand and Australia. There we go. Hey, David and Cliff and Vicky and Anthony and Heather. Anthony Quarter. Good to see you, buddy. If you're still here, we need to reconnect. Tora. All right. Let's see here. Rob, have you co-written a song with someone via email without ever speaking a word to the other person? Do you feel there would be cracks for creativity to fall through? I've never done that without knowing the person. They're like my buddy Tim. I was 3 years older than him. I was at Arkansas State University. That's not these guys. It's the Red Wolves. It's my other hat. you've seen it anyway. And Tim and I already knew each other. We talk on phone. We'd shoot stuff back and forth over email. So yeah, I've never just sent somebody, like basically a stranger, lyrics and had them work up a melody and send it back to me. You'd at least have to go back and forth several times. Yeah, I think there are cracks for that creativity to fall through, because you want to be able to connect. Now, these days with stuff like Skype, FaceTime, Zoom, that kind of stuff, you can do the video conferencing, and that's not bad, man. I do that, and it works well for me. It's a lot like being in the room, only I can take my socks and shoes off and nobody smells anything. And but as far as just like going with a stranger over email, no. My buddy Wilkes, he was on The Voice, and he has an EP out now, but heck of a singer. But I was texting him because I was busy that day, and he was down in Georgia at his home studio working. And I texted him like, "Hey, I got this lyric for this chorus to Jealous of the Night," and I sent it to him, and he's like, "Cool." And an hour or two later, I get this voice memo back over text of him, playing some of the song with some of the melody, and we've gone back and forth like over text and stuff. And he ended up cutting that song. It's on his EP. It's called "Jealous of the Night." You should check it out. He's awesome. His name is Wilkes, Wilkes, and you might have seen him on The Voice. But anyway, but he and I already knew each other. That was not our first song. That would be really odd with a brand new person. Let's see. Yeah, can you still sell a song? Of course, we don't sell songs, Deb, but yes. Can someone else, another artist, record your song if you've already released it as an indie? Yes, you sure can. And it's happened a bunch. So let's see. How long was it till I got my first cut? Let's see, I was 27, so 27 years. I think I was 27. No, I was like 29, I think, when I got my first cut. But I say that kind of in jest. I'd always been writing stuff. It was Christmas break of 93. It's Christmas break of 94, I believe. I was back from Arkansas State and took what I thought was a poem, because I was kind of writing bad poetry at the time and prose and stuff, and took it to my buddy Tim, but it was built like a song lyric, and he put a melody to it. He just gotten a guitar for his birthday at the end of October, and so he was learning how to play guitar, and he's a big country music fan. We're both big country music fans, and he put a melody to it, and I was hooked. I was like, oh, I write songs. I'm a lyricist, And so that was Christmas of 94. Other than the stuff like that Tim cut and some little indie stuff around Arkansas, basically him and a guy named Chuck Gatlin had cut some stuff, but that was like it. The first major cut came in 2004. So 9.5 years later was when Alan Jackson recorded Monday Morning Church. And so that was my first, major cut of any type. So yeah, about 10 years. And I was working pretty hard on it, that whole time. I mean, but it was through school, so it wasn't my full-time gig. It wasn't my full-time gig until after Alan cut that song. I was still working and part-time jobs, full-time jobs in Arkansas and Nashville, that kind of thing. And that cut is actually what got me in the business. So for me, it was almost 10 years. Rob Davis, yes, Wilkes is awesome. And we'll take one more question I want to bounce off here, but let's see. Oh, but again, if you're joining us late, at the beginning of this video, I shared some advice from rising singer, songwriter, artist. He's having hits in Canada, winning awards in Canada, and he's working on his U.S. record for Reviver right now. Aaron Goodvin shared some advice from him on a recent event. You can link over to that in the description of this video. And if you're a Freddie subscriber, you can watch the whole hour video in the members area. So be sure and check that out. It's really good. Let's see here. All right. Bobby asked, if you write a song and demo it, then a couple years later you do a co-write with another writer where you change the title, hook, and much of the lyrics, does that co-writer have part ownership of your original song? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Bobby. Like, would it just be, so you change the title, the hook, and much of the lyrics? So it sounds like it's probably like a melody that's staying the same, because everything else sounds like it's pretty much different. I mean, if enough of it changes, it's just a different song. If you wrote that original thing by yourself, then really just bring them on and they're a co-writer on this new song, That's kind of I've never had that happen, to be honest. Like if I did a co-writer with, say, Bobby, you and I write a song, and then 5 years later I take it and Lance and I are writing it, and we basically take a lot of that melody that you and I wrote and come up with some new stuff. You're going to be a writer on that new song, because that way if it gets cut, you don't sue us, right? I wouldn't put Lance as a writer on that old song because that existed before anything. Lance didn't add anything to that old song, but I would put you as a writer on the new song because you did add melody. So never had that happen though, generally moving forward. But anyway, y'all, hey, just thanks for hanging out. We're about 35 minutes in. I have a gift for you. It's at giftfrombrent.com. You can check it out. It's I try not to say check it out, but I say it way too much. But it's a free ebook called Think Like a Pro Songwriter. Talks about how to get on a publisher's radar, talks about some other stuff just that I picked up through my years in the music business. And you can download it for free at giftfrombrent.com. Also put you on the insiders list so you find out about stuff like the Play for Publisher event. So I give you an opportunity to get on a publisher's radar. I don't just talk about it. I try to actually help you connect with the pros. And you can get that there. So giftfrombrent.com. And I appreciate it. I'm going to go fight my allergies some more. God bless. Bye.